प्रायोरिटी बिजली, पानी, जन लोकपाल बिल और ये जो वीआईपी कल्चर है ये खत्म करना, ये सारे तुरंत करेंगे।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप सब लोगों का।
Good evening, you're watching Rebooting India on NDTV. I'm Shweta Rajpal. Kohli slashed power bills, a daily supply of 700 litres of water to every household and regularising unauthorised colonies. Some of the big poll promises by the Aam Aadmi Party that cut the people's imagination and helped it reach a position where it's now forming the government in Delhi. But what exactly is Kejri-nomics and will it work? What is the Aam Aadmi Party's economic agenda? Is it too populist, too left of centre? That's the big discussion we have for you on this show today. Joining us on this show with me here in the Delhi studio, Aditi Fadnis, political editor of Business Standard, and Praveen, a member of the Aam Aadmi Party. Joining us from Mumbai, Vivek Dahejia, contributing writer of the New York Times, and Mr. Mohandas Pai joins us from Bangalore. Let me first actually go across to Praveen Singh to get a sense of what exactly defines the economic agenda of the Aam Aadmi Party. It's a party that is coming to power in Delhi. It's a party that's hoping to be a game changer in the Lok Sabha polls. Tell us a little more about how you define Kejri-nomics.
Yeah, actually that's an interesting question. I would actually take it a step back. So I would say that economics is also a means to an end, and the end is a fulfilling life, a meaningful, a dignified life for people in Delhi. So our first question, we've taken a more first principles approach, saying people need certain basic things first of all, and then they need to get things beyond that. So when we went around Delhi making these 71 manifestos, the main one and the one in the constituencies, we realized that basic needs are not being met. So these are the things that we want to bring to the fore, and it is actually the responsibility of any government to actually find ways to address these. There is clearly provision in the budgets and all, and we can come to it later. So we don't have necessarily, I mean, it's not that our starting point has been an economic model. Our starting point is how can we actually give people a dignified life, and we'll have to find economic models to answer this question.
I think it's a very interesting point that Praveen has brought up. He's saying the starting point is not an economic model, but what is seeming as the economic agenda is one that is looking a bit too populist. And is that a cause of worry? Something that's also leading to criticism that the Aam Aadmi Party may not be able to deliver on its promises. It's something that's not sustainable. Let me get a view actually from Mohandas Pai on that, because the industry on one hand seems to be backing the Aam Aadmi Party, but is its left of centre approach, a very socialist approach, is what some are calling a cause of worry as well?
Well, Shweta, I think is a left of centre approach and is a right approach. If you look at the history of Delhi, the DDA, Delhi Development Authority, was set up to create low-cost housing and housing for the middle class. It has failed, obviously. It is not creating enough housing for the poor, and it's become a abode of the rich and a very corrupt organization. The Delhi Jal Board was supposed to deliver water. They got 40% leakage. They're not being run efficiently. And the Delhi Vidyut Kendra, or whatever it is, was supposed to deliver power, but there again they failed because they seem to be buying high-cost power. So obviously these are the three pain points of residents of Delhi, and every city resident should have this, and the city government has failed, and it has become a city of the rich, by the rich, for the rich, and not much is being done for the poor except for those. Now every government has to provide for the basic needs of society. I think everybody in industry accepts that. The only question is how, and we have to see how it is being done. Whether it is being done through greater efficiency, cutting down of waste, cutting down of corruption, monetizing the idle land that's available in Delhi, or with raising tax, or with giving dole. So methodology is something that we have to see, and we must give the Aam Aadmi Party a break, because the Aam Aadmi is the first large movement which has come the bottom of bottom, right from, I think, the independence movement. We never had a people's movement. Maybe we had the Naxal movement, the left movement, but after the left movement and the independence movement, I think we have not had a movement. So it's interesting. Right now it says left of center. Whether it is going to be a dole-driven, subsidy-driven structure, we don't know.
Would you be worried, Mr. Pai? Would you be worried if it is a dole-driven, if it's a subsidy-given economic model? Is that something that would concern you? And I'm going to come to the details of issues like slash power bills to try and understand how they intend to achieve some of those economic promises. Would subsidies worry you?
it would worry me because subsidies are open-ended and we are taking money from the future generations to pay for today because they're all funded by loans as in the government of India. I don't know the fiscal for Delhi. It would worry me a lot. It has to be a different model.
Okay, Vivek, is there a different model in place? Is it possible to actually slash those power bills, provide that kind of water that they have promised? Are those promises achievable?
No, I don't really think so, Shweta. And just to pick up on what your previous commentators have said, I mean, I take what Mr. Singh is saying, that the sort of the impetus, the origin, the genesis of this party is a people-driven party, and they're looking towards the needs of their constituents. So I mean, I do appreciate that. But having said that, since they are a new party and they're a grassroots-driven party, they probably, at this point in time, they're just taking power, haven't given a great deal of thought to actually how do we translate our goal of empowering the people of Delhi into sort of solid, sensible economic policy. And that takes careful thinking, careful figuring out. So I don't want to sort of prejudge them, but I just, on the basis of the promise to sort of cut power tariffs and provide free water, I think they're going to have to do quite a bit more than that to convince people that they've got a solid economic plan, Shweta.
Okay, Aditi, would you agree with that view that what's the need of the hour right now is for the Aam Aadmi Party to come out with a solid economic plan, because that is something which will probably determine their success in 2014?
I'm sure they've done their sums, they've done their maths, and they know what they're talking about. But I just want to say that this issue of cutting power tariff was discussed at length in the BJP also.
Right.
Because they were so enthused by the fact that somebody is offering to cut it 50% that they debated whether they could cut it 50% as well. And I think the consensus in the BJP after doing a lot of thinking was that they can only cut it to 40%. Now, I don't know what that means, but I think that
perhaps
they may
Praveen has an answer to that. This is one especially poll promise that has actually attracted the maximum criticism as well as the maximum appreciation. It has struck a chord with the people of Delhi. If you can actually reduce power bills by 50%, but how is the question?
Right. Why 50%?
And why 50%?
Not 30%? Why not 20%?
Exactly,
why
exactly.
how 50%?
Yeah.
How have you arrived at the maths?
Absolutely. Actually, these programs are really short on time. Otherwise, I would actually want to answer questions on each of our things. So we have a rationale behind it. It is entirely possible that we'll learn more on the way, but let's talk electricity. See, where are we coming from? We are basically coming from that the 2010 draft order of the DERC chairman, when the power companies actually went to him and said that we have a 600 crore loss, he went back and said, no, you should have ideally had a 3,500 crore profit. And he suggested a 22% slash in the rates in 2010. He was promptly removed. Post that, the rates have actually gone up by another 30–40%. So this 50% number is coming from the fact that if the books are not cooked, actually there is significant room there. So that's the rationale we are coming from. Now, if you were to look at the books in their current form...
Isn't it a little too ambitious, the 50% cut that you're talking about? Isn't it a bit too ambitious a target that you've set for yourself?
I have explained our rationale. It is entirely possible that when we do the audit, something like a 40% or a 35% like she says is possible. But I think in the process, we'll achieve two things. One, we will achieve transparency. It's not that people don't know how these things are done. So we are actually in this game for a much longer objective as well. It's not about Delhi power bills actually going down by 30%, 40%. But if we can bring in a culture of transparency, if the governments and corporates cannot just collude and fleece people, I think those are the larger battles we are talking about. So we see a rationale behind each of the promises we've made.
Okay.
I would be willing to answer like this one. Similarly, I'm saying there are lots of other things. In these power records, you find that there is no billing to entities like the Delhi Jal Board or the airport. So they are under-reporting their incomes. There are basically very serious flaws and they are averse to an audit. So we have reason to believe that if one were to get into these books, the picture would be different.
And you're not talking of subsidizing it. That's not something that's on your agenda?
Not, as of now, we believe that if we were to look into these books carefully, a significant reduction is possible. We will go in for that audit.
50% reduction, and that's the
only
worry.
Through the audit?
It looks highly improbable.
No, so the audit is basically saying that when at a certain point, the DRC chairman actually wanted a 22% reduction in the rates, post that there have been increases of the order of 30%. So it is entirely possible that the 50 might be 40, But I think there's a larger battle that we are fighting, and that is what needs to be.
Mr. Pai, a quick word from you before I take a break. Is the intent more important than the actual performance? And that's the sense you're getting from Praveen, who's actually been part of the manifesto formation committee of the Aam Aadmi Party. Is the intent good enough, or do you think the voters will actually punish the Aam Aadmi Party if it is not able to perform on its promises, like, for instance, slashing bills by 50%? Mr. Pai.
Shweta, I think the intent is extremely important, and I'll give you an example how they can reduce their power tariff for about 60-70% of the population. Assume there are about 1 crore people with a bill, with a RR number, with a power bill, and they get a monthly bill. They consume out of 1 crore, maybe 60-70 lakhs are poor. They consume 200 units or 400 units. And the first 200 units, if you reduce it from 4 rupees to 2 rupees, that is about, let us say, 200 rupees, 400 rupees per head. And 400 rupees for about, let's say, 1 crore people or maybe 60 lakh people is 240 crores. That is 3,000 crores. And 3,000 crores of savings in the power bill they can easily find if they find it, because there will be a lot of billing misses. I think it can be done. So I think the intent is important, and a very clear, transparent methodology is important, because the methodology is not transparent. And we all know that there's been a regulatory capture in India. Many parts of industry have captured regulators. We know that in many areas, and very visible. It's refreshing to have somebody like an Aam Aadmi Party do it all over again. And I'm very happy with Arvind Kejriwal refusing a bungalow and security. I think the intent is very important first.